What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert DeFelice.
I'm seeing red.
Or yellow, since now they're using a yellow logo. Yellow logo, red cage.
Hulk Hogan.
That's what it was. Little surprise that should have happened, but instead we had some other surprises here. We were going to break down everything that happened in Hell in a Cell and our thoughts of what went down. Hell in a Cell 2018, that's what we're talking about, instead of just other Hell in a Cell events. Although, in the past, maybe I would rather watch some other Hell in a Cells instead. Overall impression about this, I gotta say,
Not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I think from an in-ring standpoint, it was one of the better shows of the year. There were a few dodgy, decisions at the end of every match. Not every match, but of some of the matches. But in terms of the actual work in the ring, I thought it was very good.
I didn't think this was the worst event of the year, but I really, honestly, I feel like it's hollow. Not much really happened, and what did happen, I don't know if I really feel all that wowed by it. And one of those things, let me just start off with the pre-show, of course, because I might as well.
Speaking of hollow, the look behind Jonathan Coachman's eyes.
Ooh. That was the first thing I thought of when a Coachman popped up. I was like, he looks so sad.
He wishes he was anywhere else, doing a real job, rather than this every single week.
And he tried to be so, broadcaster on point serious with it. And as usual with the panel, they're just, being goofy. And he was trying so hard to be straight. And it's just, it didn't work. I don't think Coach in WWE in 2018 is working.
I mean, he could, if they wanted to go with that kind of a feel, but if everybody else is going with the opposite, he stands out like a sore thumb. It's kind of the same as, you can get some really, really good interviewers, but if they still have to do that thing where they stare off into the distance at the end of every kind of interview, it's going to seem strange, you know? Coach just didn't look like he was all that happy to be in that kind of position, and I don't know if that's going to be maybe it was a one-time thing, maybe they switch him over to somebody else, maybe Charlie takes over the role in the future and they just kind of slowly push Coachman outside, or maybe he sticks around and he gets a little bit of a better attitude or gets happier about the position, but he didn't seem like he was all that happy about it for sure. But the whole kickoff, nothing really to talk about that I can think of other than maybe the match. Am I forgetting anything that happened in the pre-show?
I didn't watch it up until the actual match happened, so I assumed it was just a load of video packages, as it usually is.
I don't think we had anything significant because there was a bit of Foley, but it wasn't anything oh man, you got to hear what Foley said. So yeah, I think it was just the match. Well, that and the fact that one of the general managers was on the panel.
Yeah, Paige was there, but I think I mean, maybe it was just because they wanted to have her do something. Maybe it's because they felt a little bit strange having 4 guys on there. Maybe they just thought she'd actually be entertaining. She wasn't. The match itself that we had on here, though, instead of adding another match to the card, they decided to bump up the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match between the New Day and Rusev Day. And they did that in a not full arena. That was noticeable. New Day retains the titles by pinfall, and the ending itself, very sloppy. Wasn't the worst ending of the night, but it set kind of a tone, I think. We had Rusev being pulled out by, I think it was Big E, and you could tell that Rusev was
trying so hard.
Trying to pretend like he wasn't able to actually, it was obvious that he could reach where he wanted to reach. And he was just oh no, I can't move anywhere. It looked pretty bad. The match itself, not all that bad, not all that great, but that ending just stunk it up.
I don't like the fact that they did the thing where they were already breaking up just to put them back together, just to get them to the point where it's maybe they're going to break up again. I don't know. It just seemed like a waste of time to me.
Yeah, that was the big issue that I had with it. The match itself, I thought it's not the standard New Day Usos, but I thought it was a very good match. I thought there was a number of close moments where you thought the titles were going to change hands. I thought the crowd were really getting behind Rusev and Aiden English, which is good to see. And there seemed to be a real air of disappointment when they didn't win the titles at the end.
Yeah, I really thought it was their night.
Yeah, and I don't like the idea that there's going to be more discontent between the two of them because they've done so well with English coming back and redeeming himself in the eyes of Rusev, helping both the team get to a position where they could challenge for the title, and then they do the thing where he basically messes up again, and that's just gonna hit a reset button. I do have to say that the New Day were absolutely terrible this entire night, outside of the ring. Everything they did outside of the ring was absolutely insufferable.
You didn't like them shoving pancakes in Butterworth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with their zany antics every now and again, but that backstage segment later on in the show is like, okay, can we just wrap this up? It's been 3-4 minutes.
I think they were specifically getting some time for Cole and Renee to make it down to the ringside. I think that's why it dragged on.
What's this character that Kofi Kingston's now developed?
So was it Kramer Kingston?
Kramer Kingston, yeah, he needs to retire that immediately. It's not.
What do you
funny.
mean? You don't like when he's talking like this? Yeah,
I'd rather he just went back to the Jamaican accent. Maybe he could just be just the old Kofi Kingston interviewing them instead. But they were obviously in the ring as usual. They were very solid and very good. Everything else was an absolute train wreck.
I like the opening when they came out and Woods just had to throw out there. And by the way, for the 4th year in a row at Hell in a Cell, we're defending the tag team titles. We run this shit. We're awesome. Yeah, I just thought that was a nice little, hey, look at us.
Good for New Day. Still love them.
Yeah, but again, that opening, those microphone battle between him, the New Day and Aiden English went on far too long as well. It's like everything dragged on too long.
Yeah, I agree. Talking. That wasn't good. Although I kind of hate everything that Aiden English does when it comes to that. I don't find that singer gimmick fun. So I just assumed that it was that.
It was definitely New Day. Because I like Aiden English's stuff, so.
Either way, New Day retained the titles. Nothing much to talk about there. We already knew ahead of time that they were going to fight the Bar, so that's not all that surprising. The first match on the main card itself was one of the Hell in a Cell matches. Makes sense. They take a little bit of time to set up the ring and do kind of like that kind of scenario. Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy, which Randy Orton wins by pinfall. There were a couple of good spots in this. The one spot that people are going to be talking about the most, of course, is the end spot, which was Jeff Hardy climbing a ladder to get up to a ladder, to climb to the top of that ladder, to dangle off the top of the roof, to fall on his fucking face. And just...
Well, hold on. You're burying Jeff a little more than I think he deserves credit for, because he was going to do that thing where he does the leapfrog from one ladder to the other, but then he realized that he could just hang from the top of the cell, and since he can't jump off the cell, this is the next best thing. So he tried that. Yeah, and then he fell on his face.
Looked like it hurt.
Spot, I mean, it was an interesting spot. I think
it's not
Randy
the
Orton
screwdriver.
well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think for the finale, Randy Orton moved off the table far too quickly.
Oh, way too quickly. He was rolling before he came even close to jumping.
You could see that Hardy had about at least 5 seconds to look down and say, "Oh well, Orton's not on that table anymore. Oh my god, my grip's like slipping or whatever."
Yeah.
And then but it was just that looked quite awkward to me.
And if he was gonna, get off the table so quick, you think he should have tried to catch him with an RKO?
I think it's good that they're not doing the RKO thing. He is not using the RKO. I mean, he tried to obviously use it during the match and it was reversed, but it's quite interesting that they haven't had him use the RKO at all since he came back. So they must be building up to him using it to be something significant down the line.
Maybe they just don't want to do it because they know people will pop for it.
Potentially, yeah.
There's
as
that
well.
too.
But I think they're going to have, eventually they're going to have to hit it again. And I'd like to think that it's going to be for some sort of either championship or big opportunity or something along those lines to make it worthwhile. And they don't just throw it onto just an episode of SmackDown because they forgot that they was meant to be building something significant.
Well, how do you guys feel about this whole, like, this build between Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton? It kind of pushed Shinsuke Nakamura and the United States title into nothingness. And do you guys feel like this was a good enough payoff for that? That we spent this feud leading into, what was it? What was the first time that they started doing this whole thing?
SummerSlam.
No, it was before SummerSlam, wasn't it?
No,
because
so
SummerSlam was the rematch.
Yeah, it was Extreme Rules when Shinsuke Nakamura won the title from Hardy.
That's what it was. Okay.
Afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, so this has been 2 months, a little bit more than that, in the making. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely, like, I thought for what they gave us, that's the closest thing to an older Hell in a Cell match that you'll get in a 2018. I thought they were very innovative. I thought it was brutal where it needed to be. Yeah, it did push the US title into nothingness, but they can always, shine that up when they need it. I think that this was a really good match and a really good payoff, and I'm actually really excited between the video package, the match, and the ending. I'm excited to see where Orton goes from here, and he's not a guy that always captures excitement, and I like what they're doing with him.
Well, I liked the match. It's one of my favorite matches of the night, and it was one of the things that, in the grand scheme of things, I liked the spots on there. I liked the part with Hardy. I think he did roll out of the way far too early, but at the same time, it was still kind of fun. I liked him using the screwdriver. That was fun.
That was so fucking cringy.
I liked that little spot where he gave him the vertical suplex onto the ladder. That was fun. This was one of the more fun parts of the night.
I kind of go along the lines of, I don't think this was a very good match because it wasn't really a match. It was Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy moving around and then occasionally hitting like a big spot like the screwdriver thing or putting through the ladder or the table spot at the end. It was all built around just those couple of spots, and the spots themselves were cool, but everything else around that was so samey and boring. It went on far too long. It was like, I think it was the longest match on the entire show. And
it almost went on 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, including entrances and stuff like that. It was far too long. I think Orton was far too ponderous for the entire thing. Hardy's too beat up to really deliver. I thought he delivered as well as he could do, considering the shape that he's in. But yeah, I think it's just a boring match with a few high spots sprinkled around to make it look better than it actually was.
Fair enough. I think I'm probably gonna argue that this is my favorite match of the night by the end of it, but I can see where that point of view is
that's
still valid.
It's far down for me, unfortunately. I'm not saying that it was terrible, but I think it was quite easy to see that this was a match between two people that don't really move at a considerable rate anymore, and they were innovative with the spots they did use, but it didn't capture my attention that much.
The SmackDown Women's Championship match was the one that followed this. Charlotte Flair going up against Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch wins the title by pinfall. Smart move. We all kind of talked about this ahead of time, that it seems like a sign of good faith to the crowd, essentially, if they put the title on Becky. So I don't think it's a bad thing in any way. And one of the things that it's good for is we know that they're going to be fighting each other at Super Showdown. Now we have a reason for them to fight each other because Charlotte has her rematch. So for all intents and purposes, good match in my mind. smart move for the finish. Makes the Super Showdown thing mean more. And I liked it.
Loved it. So happy that not only that Becky won, but they really told the story that Becky had Charlotte's number. You know, she was ready. She was pissed off. She wanted her shot, and this was her shot, and she came in ready and just outclassed Charlotte and outmaneuvered her at the end. It was great.
Again, I don't want to sound like I'm burying this match because the match itself was very, very good. I thought they both showed a lot of like technical expertise. They both showed that this was like a match between who was proving who was the best. And if that was the story they were telling, which it appeared they would be doing, then it was like very well executed. My problem is the fact that that shouldn't have been the story they were telling. I think it should have been more of a fist fight. And there were elements of that towards the end, but I think it was too much about okay, I'm better than you. And but that didn't feel like the story they were telling leading into this. The story they were telling is you betrayed me because you're more interested in a title than our friendship, or you've been holding me back my entire career and stuff along those lines. So it should have been more of a brawl, in my opinion.
I got a feeling that might be the case for the Super Showdown match. They might be saving that because we had the brawls between Hardy and Orton. We had the brawl between Styles and Joe. You know, like they probably said, like, "Hey, don't do that." You know.
Well, yeah, potentially, but I don't think it's going to be a brawl at Super Showdown either because, well, as we'll see later, you're going to have Samoa Joe and AJ Styles in a no disqualification match, so that's got to be the brawl, designated brawl. So I think we're going to see basically this match just slightly different. With probably Charlotte getting more offense in than Becky did in this match.
I hope that Super Showdown isn't just like rinse and repeat.
It's a house show.
Yeah.
But
I think they made a considerable effort to make it less of a house show than the Greatest Royal Rumble was.
Yeah, potentially. Well, we haven't seen it yet, so
No, I
don't know how.
I feel like Greatest Royal Rumble was more like grandiose. They had titles on the line. This one isn't as many. They've got the Cruiserweight title, the WWE title.
Change, but
yeah, but at least they had like the Cruiserweight Championship was on the line, and the Raw Tag titles and the Universal title. Like they had a lot of titles on the line. This time around, it's just the WWE title, the SmackDown titles, and
SmackDown Women's,
Cruiserweight, and SmackDown Women's. Yeah, so four out of like 9 titles or something like that. Like,
well, we'll get into it later, but I think that Universal title is going to be on the line.
Gonna be all in. What?
No, the Universal title. I think it's going to be on the line
in the Super Showdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll change it. I was actually going along the same lines with Rob. I think they're changing things up.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll definitely talk about that when we get to it.
But if we just like finish rounding off on this match, I think the finish was a bit out of nowhere, which kind of threw me off guard. But I guess I'm kind of happy with it. I kind of wanted it to be more like cut and dry. If this was the story they were telling, that Becky would force her to tap out. But maybe that'll be the final thing they do.
Maybe.
I agree with you.
I mean, if they force Charlotte to tap out or force Becky to tap out, it kind of does sort of put some finality on it. So if they do that here, then where do you go from there, you know?
Maybe saying more of like they were in the submission hold and they got into a cradle or something along those lines. But the way that it happened, it just like seemed to just be some sort of Spanish fly or flip out of the spear. Just seemed a little bit out of nowhere for my taste.
Should have been an RKO. Would have worked. We had the Raw Tag Team Championship match after this, which was Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler successfully defending against Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in another really good match that I went into it not really thinking that it was going to be all that great with like the booking side of things. I figured the 4 of them would be able to put on a good match, and they did. But I knew that I wouldn't be super, super like, oh my god, wow, by the end of it. And I wasn't, you know, the end of it was just like, okay, they retained the end of that. Let's move on. But the match was good. So overall, that's a positive for me.
Yeah, I thought this was a great match.
Yeah.
Especially, I think it started off a little bit slowly, but it picked up really nicely towards the end. Drew McIntyre and Dean Ambrose need to have some sort of street fight down the line because they just love beating the shit out of each other, and I enjoy watching it. I don't. Well, one of my main thoughts coming out of the back of that match is like, why does Drew McIntyre team with Dolph Ziggler? Because Dolph was fucking up everything that entire match. I mean, not in terms of like his actual ring stuff. His in-ring stuff is as good as it always is, but like he was showboating too much, so he's getting caught out. Like in a kayfabe setting, why does Drew McIntyre team with Dolph Ziggler?
Yeah.
Can he find a better partner? Can he find someone that's more dependable or less likely to fuck up on a regular basis? I thought the finish was the best finish on the entire show.
Yeah.
Finishes weren't good on this show.
No, but this one was great. Like coming up from the going into the Falcon's Arrow after the superplex, and then getting caught with the Claymore kick as he was going down with the suplex. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it got an audible reaction from me because I just didn't see that coming. And my favorite visual of the night was McIntyre holding both of the championships and Dolph Ziggler on his shoulder and walking out. Just really
that sounds about
great
right.
to me.
McIntyre carrying the entire operation.
So this was my gripe with the show. I wanted to see 3 matches, and they were the first 3. And after that, I was like, all right, everything I saw was, pretty much what I expected, pretty good. And now I have to sit through more matches that I'm not that excited about.
I mean, I wanted to see AJ versus Joe, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah, there's I think there was a bit of this represented quite a high point, and then I think there was a little bit of a dip in quality beyond this point.
Real quick, because I don't want to linger on it, but that Champions commercial that they kept showing really just like, I don't know, it just seemed so weird. It's like, why are we celebrating that women are in a video game? Aren't they in all your video games?
Were you more annoyed about that or the Marine 6 commercials?
That they ran like 4 times.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate when they plug their own stuff multiple times in a night because it's like, your core audience is going to get it. But I didn't know that Becky Lynch, Shawn Michaels, and The Miz were in a movie together. So that did make me chuckle. And I was like, hey, maybe I'll check that out. That was the first time, though.
I tell you what annoyed me even more was the fact that I think it was 3 times throughout this whole thing we watched the Samoa Joe bedtime story.
Oh, God.
Which I didn't want to see the first time, let alone more times after that. Not a fan of that at all.
That's the next match, right?
Yep. And I know that some people disagree. Some people had left comments saying that they really, really loved the AJ Styles Samoa Joe match. I thought it was boring as shit.
I sadly have to agree with you.
I really couldn't get into it at all. From the start to the finish of it, I thought it was just a dud.
I think the last, I want to say like 5 minutes, after the clothesline, where he clotheslines him and he comes up bloody, then it seemed like they kicked it into a gear, but it took them too long to get there.
Well, I don't remember at what point in the match it was, but I do know at one point they were literally like walking from corner to corner and giving them like, here's like a punch. And then we're going to stand around, and then 10 seconds later, there's a kick. And then we're going to stand around, and then 15 seconds later, there's another kick. And I was just like, oh my God, the crowd is not reacting to this. Do something. And that's when they did that whole spot with like Joe hitting the enziguri or whatever it was. And then some people went like, oh, hey, something happened. And it's just sort of like, pick up the pace a little bit, guys. If you really need to stall for that much time, maybe throw another match on the card, Could have gotten rid of the whole New Day promo, and maybe not every match would have been as long as it would have been, and could have picked up the pace a little bit. I didn't like this. I didn't like it at all. And the ending of it, for those who didn't see it, the ending was Samoa Joe puts AJ Styles in a coquina clutch. Styles reverses it, and he gets a pinfall out of it. But contrary to the angle of what we were actually seeing, AJ tapped out right at the 2.5 mark, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, probably would have played a little bit better if they would have been on the opposite camera side, and we could have been able to see it. They needed to backtrack and kind of tell the story again afterward. And now, because of that, they're going to have the match that they had already announced, with Paige going, yeah, you're going to get your rematch in 3 weeks at the Super Showdown, and the match that we had already set up ahead of time. But that one's going to be some kind of street fight or no DQ or whatever you want to call it.
When I originally read the notification, it said in a stipulation match.
Yeah, so they might have actually put that in there and then backtracked and got rid of it. But this is a stall. And you know how I feel about stalling. If you have to do that as many times as they've been doing that recently, then I don't know if you're necessarily a good writer. Well, you can figure out other ways around it, other than just like, how about we do something that doesn't do anything so that way we could do it again later?
First, I'll just give my quick thought to the match. I think it's a match that a lot of people who are old school wrestling fans or people that have been in the business and watch it will probably say, oh, that was a terrific match, like such brilliant storytelling and stuff like that. I struggled to keep attention to it. There are a few nice elements to it, like Samoa Joe's suicide dive, which exploded into the announce table. It's great. The Inseguri, mainly things that Joe was doing to AJ was pretty cool, and the crowd was getting behind AJ as the babyface, which is a good thing to have. I think the big issue is the fact of AJ Styles has been champion for close to a year now, but the quality of his reign, I don't really know how to judge it, in the sense that so many of his matches have ended in fuck finishes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
And his feuds, his feuds end...
drag out so long.
They end
they drag out
7 matches after they should have or something.
Yeah, they drag out far too long, and then it ends up with, Styles still the champion, and the guy that he's feuding with is really no more overall, a bigger deal than they previously were. I mean, you kind of had to give Shinsuke Nakamura the United States Championship, because otherwise his heel turn would have been completely and utterly wasted otherwise. But it's a sense of, he's had, I guess, quote, fuck finishes at the Royal Rumble and Backlash and Greatest Royal Rumble. Now this, the previous match as well at SummerSlam. It's can you actually win matches? If it's not someone like Rusev or something like that, the people he's actually meant to be mainly feuding with, can you actually just win
Rusev
some matches?
Had a fuck finish too.
True. It's can you have just win matches, or ideally lose matches? Because I'm kind of sick of that AJ Styles being WWE champion. I want Shinsuke Nakamura to be champion. I want Samoa Joe to be champion. I don't really want AJ to be champion anymore.
I'm okay with AJ being champion. I just kind of want him to actually have a feud that goes somewhere instead of just repeating itself.
I'd be okay with him being champion. I'd rather be in a situation where I think that he's just been champion because he's one of Vince McMahon's favourites and they're trying to get him to break a record. Which is kind of the feeling I'm getting now, rather than, he's the most popular guy and he's putting the greatest matches on all the time. It's and he's in the best feuds. It's no, that's not the case. He's stale, and he says the same things every single promo that he gives. He's a really boring champion. He's good in the ring, or great in the ring even, but he's not an interesting champion.
Bret Hart.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't have liked to see, I wasn't watching at the time, but I wouldn't have liked, especially in this era, I wouldn't like to see someone like Bret Hart holding the championship for over nearly a year.
My issue with AJ is they keep doing this thing where they're not, the whole build up to everything he does is, won't this be great? It's AJ Styles and insert, great journeyman wrestler here. This is going to be great. And then they throw so much like typical sports entertainment stuff around it, and the two things just don't mesh, and you just end up with like a blah outcome at the end, and people get over it quickly.
Well,
Yeah,
I kind of feel like one of the issues that's going on here is in the WWE storytelling capacity, Samoa Joe and AJ Styles have their fight, and AJ is so pissed that he gets disqualified. And technically, because Samoa Joe wins that by DQ, hey, those two that really hate each other are going to fight each other again at Hell in a Cell in a non-Hell in a Cell match. And then they fight, and then Samoa Joe sort of wins, and he sort of doesn't, which is now kind of one of those things where it's like, Joe won by DQ, which isn't really a win. Joe lost while getting a submission win, so it's not really a loss. I should, by their account, be so into this that when Super Showdown comes, I'm salivating at the idea that, oh man, God, these two are going to fight, and they're going to beat the crap out of each other in this no DQ match, and it's going to be so brutal. And is that going to be when Samoa Joe takes the title, or is that when AJ Styles is going to overcome the odds? And the only question I have in my mind is, which one do you go with? This is a cynical way to look at things, and it's very pessimistic, and I hate that I have this kind of mentality, but option one, AJ Styles retains the title at Super Showdown. Samoa Joe is proven to be somebody that they're not going to put the title on. Option two, Samoa Joe wins the title, and by this point, he's already waited 3 months or so to win this title. So by losing, or not winning more so, those two title matches before, by the time he wins that one, is anybody really going to care? You're going to have to rebuild him up again and put him in another feud with somebody else. Yet, we know, Super Showdown's going to have a match between Daniel Bryan and The Miz, and the winner of that's going to fight the WWE Champion. So if you go straight into Daniel Bryan, the major focus of Daniel Bryan versus Samoa Joe is going to be Daniel Bryan and not Samoa Joe. He's going to come off like a weak champion. Wouldn't it have been a little bit better if he would have just beaten him at SummerSlam?
Yeah, exactly. Only I don't know what their status is on Samoa Joe. He's clearly one of the best guys on there, and they can't really deny that. I mean, the shit that they give him, which any other superstar you give him, especially with the bedtime story and stuff like that, every other superstar probably would fail to deliver that in a convincing fashion, and he just about manages it. And like, that's barely, because the writing is absolutely terrible. But yeah, I don't know where they want to go with this. My mindset is still currently thinking that they want AJ to go past the year. And
I'm thinking if they can avoid it, if they can get him to 435 by Mania, I think they'll try.
Well, what's 435?
That'll be one day off the Punk's reign.
It officially beats Punk.
If they do that, though, I mean, hate to say it, but like, who does AJ Styles fight at WrestleMania that's going to be really all that great other than Daniel Bryan? And then if it's babyface versus babyface, they're going to be tempted to put AJ Styles in a heel role. And I don't like heel AJ.
You can do babyface versus babyface with those guys. Like, those guys, it should be easy. All you would have to do is build it up through training packages. But again, like I said, with the pattern that they've shown me with AJ, is they'll try too hard to say, isn't this dream match great? And then throw sports entertainment gaga behind it. And it might not work. Which is why I think that they'll get him past a year, but come TLC or Royal Rumble, he drops it to The Miz, and we do end up getting Miz and Bryan at Mania.
I don't know. Either way, I'm not feeling it. Whatever they're doing right now.
Can we just sorry, I don't want to linger on this too much longer, but just the final thing. I know people tend to like the idea that sometimes it's good to have a heel that has some sort of reasoning behind it. It's not just like a bad guy for a bad guy's sake. He actually thinks he's doing good, or he actually thinks that he's doing the right thing, or something along those lines, or at least the right thing for him. But like Samoa Joe just got screwed out of the championship, and yet we're still supposed to feel like that he's the bad guy in this situation.
And no, it's the same thing that they're doing with Strowman. It's funny. I know we passed the SmackDown women's match already, but I felt the same thing there. It was like, you cannot tell me that the people aren't behind who you're trying so hard to position as a heel. And I don't know why they forced that.
I think it's legitimate ignorance. I think it's just that maybe it's Vince, maybe it's a cabal of people, but I think that they legitimately think that that is what everybody will think. Just like, well, AJ is the babyface, so we should be happy that he's the champion, and that's the end of it. You know what I mean? Which is a dangerous way to go down, because if you start thinking that way, that whatever your point of view is, that other people can't have any other point of view, you're not going to be able to appeal to everybody that you're kind of targeting, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they clearly thought Becky Lynch was a heel. That was like, oh, we were supposed to be so sympathetic towards Charlotte. But they set Becky Lynch up to be the babyface at a time. You know?
And I love the whole excuse of trying to make Becky sound like, you know, the whole entitled millennial thing. Oh, you just want a participation trophy and you're entitled. And it's like, no, people want to see Becky Lynch be champion. You're not winning this war.
Mm-hmm. Road Dogg even addressed it. He was just kind of like, what do you mean? I don't see her as a heel. I see her as a badass who's trying to fight whatever. Yet you have all the heels on her side, and she doesn't slap any hand to the fans on the way down. And all the interviewers are referring to her as like, oh, but this like vicious turn that she's done against the babyface Charlotte Flair, like, they push a narrative. And when it comes to the Samoa Joe and AJ Styles thing, they're going to push the narrative of like, well, Joe got a little bit screwed here, but, and then the but is going to be where you're supposed to fill in the blank of, this is why we're supposed to still be kind of cheering for Styles, yet they haven't come up with an answer yet. As far as I know, I don't think they're going to do it on Tuesday for why we shouldn't feel a little bit bad for Joe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Other than they just wanted to stall. And if they did that because they think, well, we don't want to have two titles change hands here and nothing happen at Super Showdown, maybe they did that because they were like, well, that way Samoa Joe wins the title at Super Showdown and it makes it feel like something was accomplished. Just gotta hope that if the alternative is AJ Styles retains, that they figure out something for Joe, because that sucks for Joe, you know? We'll see. A couple weeks from now. But man, I gotta stay on the negative train here, because the mixed match challenge match. Yeah, the mixed tag team match with The Miz and Maryse against Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella followed this. And holy shit. Was the end of this match a mess?
Yep.
I mean, goddamn, like, Brie was on Raw and she was awful, and she had her match, quote unquote match, with Maryse on SmackDown, and that was a mess. And then this. They spent the whole match trying to build up this idea of like Maryse and Brie, like they're not fighting, and like, oh my god, they're finally fighting. What happened there? Was Brie supposed to throw Maryse into The Miz? Was The Miz supposed to interrupt there? Was Maryse not, like, who was fucking up there? Was it multiple people? Because at the end, after that little spot, Brie and Maryse both fucked up 2 different pins. So I'm kind of assuming it was on them, but maybe part of it was The Miz too?
I tend to, and maybe I'm being unfair in this, but essentially, if it's a match that involves Brie Bella, it's probably Brie Bella that fucked up.
Probably. She looked like she was the most confused.
Because she's terrible, like really, really bad. And she's never got any better than what she probably was 2-3 years ago. And this match was, like, you could tell it was Daniel Bryan and The Miz going through the motions. Like, this is probably what they would do on any single like house show match they'd have together. and then Maryse feigning getting involved because she doesn't actually want to wrestle, and then Brie being like the valiant one, just trying to fight and get in her face, and then just doing all the cool stuff like banging her head against the apron or something like that, because that's really like difficult to do.
That's 2006 Divas.
Yeah. And can we also address the double standard in that, like, surely when Brie Bella punched The Miz, that should be a disqualification?
No, I would love to address that double standard, because that's why I don't like these matches, because they set the precedent of, yeah, the women can totally beat up on the men and it's awesome, and look how powerful these women are, but if, you know, Miz tries to save his wife from a pinfall, whoa, that's a DQ. You're being, you know, you can't put your hands on her.
Yeah,
stupid.
Yeah, I didn't also like obviously when Miz pulled Brie off the pinfall, and then Bryan gets his face like really beating him up and saying, "Don't put your hands on my wife." That sounded really possessive, like obsessively possessive over Brie. That's not really how I picture Daniel Bryan. That's how I picture like a Randy Savage if Miss Elizabeth had been involved in that situation.
I think it's a stupid spot to be in, because like they make these rules to where, well, if she's getting pinned, what am I supposed to do? You can do it, honey. Kick out. Like, I tried. I can't, you know, actively stop her. I don't know.
Yeah, but this match was like, I think the lowest point of the night.
This match sucked.
I was
This match
looking
fucking
forward
sucked.
to it too, man, and it's a shame.
Storyline wise, the match made sense to do. And
Yeah.
storyline wise, what they did in the match wasn't bad. But the execution of what they did was fucking awful.
Yeah, it's like one of the weird ones where some of the matches that were better actually had like odd or not very interesting finishes, or finishes that just were baffling. Whereas this one had the right finish and had the right story throughout it, but was just bad match.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say it quick, and we can move on. But I am flabbergasted that you have this dude who was literally the bridging the gap between the smart fan and the casual fan, and he comes back and it's been so dull.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest issue out of everything else, is the fact that they've utterly taken all the steam out of Daniel Bryan's return.
Well,
And
He's
to be
just
honest,
yeah.
To be honest, at this point, I don't want Daniel Bryan versus Miz at WrestleMania.
No,
I've seen it enough.
Yeah, it's not a big enough deal anymore. They've like neutered Daniel Bryan completely.
okay, real quick, can we talk about? Yes, they've always positioned SmackDown as the lesser show, but it's getting to a point where, why put these valuable guys on one brand if you're not going to treat that brand as equal? And why separate the talent at all in that case? Like, you know, AJ Styles comes off worse because it's SmackDown and who gives a fuck. Bryan comes off worse, same reason, you know. Like, something has to be done here.
Well,
It will when
well,
Fox comes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fox will come in.
Yeah, but
And
that's
That's what's
going
gonna
to
happen.
And then we'll see Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles on Raw and Roman Reigns on SmackDown.
I guarantee you, when we get the Super Showdown after WrestleMania next year, or not the Super Showdown, the Superstar Shakeup. So we used to saying Super Showdown now. When we get the Shakeup, you're gonna see. Well, you're gonna get one of two things. I think you're gonna get a lot of people get sent over to SmackDown, either from NXT or from Monday Night Raw, and they kind of like they bolster that roster a little bit like that. Or they're going to do the total opposite and fly in the complete opposite direction of what they should. And in typical WWE fashion, we're going to see big people go from SmackDown to Raw. And then there's going to be some extra thing right before, because it's October, I think, of next year, is when that Fox switch happens, right?
I believe
September
so,
or October, one of those two.
October.
Right before that, it's going to be something where it's like, after SummerSlam, we're going to do some big talent exchange or something like that. And then they're going to be like, that really freshens things up. And they give a solid push for a couple of months leading into WrestleMania 36. By that time, Fox is kind of like a little bit used to things a little bit, and then we get the next superstar shakeup after that. Suddenly, SmackDown is the big show again.
Well, I don't know. They might actually have to treat it like an equal because, it's going to be on an actual broadcast network. And Callum, is this weird for you? Does anything change for you at all in this case?
Not via the means that I watch Raw and SmackDown, so no.
Yeah, so that's a weird thing, but I think it has to be because they're going to be on, just a regular broadcast channel that anyone can get, and it's one of the major ones, so maybe they will put real steam behind SmackDown. I hope
so.
They do.
Yeah. We had our second to last match was the Raw Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey defended against Alexa Bliss. Successful in her defending. Yep. Tappa. It was better than the mixed tag team match.
That's not saying much.
Is that the rating you're giving?
Yeah, pretty much. Because I didn't like Styles Joe, and I didn't like the mixed tag match. And when Rousey and Bliss come out, I really just kind of at this point I started checking out because I just wasn't into it. I knew Rousey would retain, and I figured maybe there's going to be some decent spots in it, but I honestly just wasn't really all that into it. So it didn't capture my attention all that much, and what I did see was fine. It was just fine.
Tappa.
Is that what you can say at this point?
Yeah. Well, for this match, because there's nothing to say, it's like this was never in question.
No.
I think there's plenty to say on this match.
About Alicia Fox's outfit at the very least?
Well, yeah, you probably spent an hour just talking about what the fuck was she thinking at that point. But the main, there's a couple of big points. First of all, this match went on probably far longer than most people would have expected. And for the time that I was watching it, because initially I was watching it thinking, oh my god, I can literally see Ronda Rousey's stock value just plummet in front of my very eyes because she's having to go 50-50 with Alexa Bliss. But then you have to kind of take back away a little bit in your mind and think, okay, this isn't the mindset of Ronda Rousey's a legitimate judo champion, UFC champion fighting essentially a cheerleader turned wrestler almost. It feels like that when you talk about Alexa Bliss. Whereas in the kayfabe sense, she's a multiple-time women's champion, so she should be one of the top dogs, and so could have some sort of parity with Ronda Rousey. And then I think when you have that mindset, which I kind of did for the second half of the match, I thought it was actually a really solid match. I think it was as good as Ronda Rousey's looked since probably the WrestleMania one. I think the spot where Alexa's holding her by the face, doing the grr face, and then Rousey actually pulls off the angry glare, and Alexa's absolutely terrified, and then just gets the shit beaten out of her for the next few minutes. I thought that was really cool. It redeemed the match for me when it seemed like it was going to go downhill because it dragged on far too long. Essentially it, really.
Yeah, I really don't have anything else to say about it. It was just kind of all right, meh. And then
they both sold really well. I thought Ronda in particular was selling the ribs really well. And it's probably one of the biggest issues. There's a sense of when I was thinking in the earlier mindset, I was looking and say, well, she's green. I know another person who was green but was pushed really heavily and it worked really well was Goldberg. But the reason why Goldberg worked so well is because he was putting 3-minute matches all the time and just destroyed the people, and then the crowd loved it. Whereas you could see with Ronda having to sell for so long, the crowd was getting slowly dragged out of it because they kind of just want Ronda Rousey to be a badass that just beats people in a few minutes and makes them tap out.
Yeah, and that act is going to get a little bit old too.
I mean, it will do, but fucking hell, Goldberg lasted 1.5 years of being on the top side of things, and business was great at that point. So you can stretch this thing out if you're smart enough. And it will get boring eventually, but that when it gets boring, you turn Ronda Rousey heel and then you build up the babyface to beat her.
That's the best thing that you do with streaks.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I mean, technically, she doesn't have a streak going on because she... Well, actually, she hasn't lost yet.
She hasn't lost, but they have made her look far more vulnerable than she probably should have.
Maybe. Either way, this thing with Alexa Bliss is done. Pretty sure.
Yeah, we can move on to
A pointless 6-woman tag team match.
Yeah, we can move on to Evolution, where Alexa will be facing Trish, and Ronda Rousey will almost certainly be facing Nikki Bella.
Yay! Can't wait for that one. Finally, our main event was the Universal Championship Hell in a Cell match between Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, which had Mick Foley as the special guest referee. Actually, before we could talk about this, I just want to mention something else. What do you guys think about the red cage? Because we mentioned it kind of early on, but we didn't really talk about it. I thought it's horrible looking.
Too bright. It's like when you're in Photoshop and you just take the little thing and you put it all the way to the top and the end. Like the saturation on that red was just like, it hurt my eyes legitimately.
I just think that it looks like plastic. It's like made out of candy or something.
I think that's a fair point, but I think it's one of those things where people will look at it and go, "Oh my god, that was absolutely terrible" in the first time they've seen it, and then by the time it's turned up, at the next Hell in a Cell, they just won't care anymore. It's like the Universal title when it first came out. It's just like, "Oh my god, this is absolutely atrocious," but at the end, it doesn't actually really matter. I don't think it affected anything.
It didn't affect the match itself, but I
think it probably made visibility worse for the crowd.
Yeah,
the visibility worse for me. I'm not even being funny. It made things seem so just far too bright, and the visual of the cage dropping with the dark lights on it looked cool. But once it was around the ring and fully lit up, it didn't work for me.
I don't know what colorblind people saw. Didn't see red. They saw a dark brown or green or something.
Salmon colored.
I'll
have to ask Wigo.
Oh, is Wigo colorblind?
Red green colorblind, if I remember correctly.
Huh.
But with Wigo recently, he hasn't even been watching wrestling, so he'll be like, I don't know, I didn't see anything.
It strikes me as one of those things that Vince McMahon woke up at night and a cold sweat and was like, "It's hell. It should be red. Why hasn't this thing been red? Make it red."
Then somebody was like, "We don't even have a red logo anymore. You made it yellow." And he's like, "Well, then make the cage yellow, damn it." And they're like, "Well, we already made it red." I don't know. I don't like it, but oh well. I also didn't like the main event, so I guess it's not the case.
This is a clusterfuck.
This is what? It's just
this is probably what we in the business term overbook bullshit.
Okay, so positive first. There was so much fuckery that I really paid attention because I was like, what is happening here? But let's also tell the truth. This is straight up Hogan Bischoff era TNA.
Yeah, it's Russo, the late Russo WWE, WCW stuff.
This was madness. I'll admit though, I expected obviously the Shield and Ziggler and McIntyre. I did not see Brock Lesnar coming.
I didn't see it coming, and I guess if I would have looked at the leaks ahead of time where people were saying, "Hey, Brock Lesnar's backstage," then I would have seen it coming. But at the same time, I think the reason I didn't see it coming is because it doesn't make any sense, really. And there's a couple things in this whole, I know that your focus is supposed to be on certain things. And to a certain extent, I'm willing to, suspend my disbelief when it comes to WWE. I know The Undertaker's not a goddamn wizard. He's not undead. But if you want to play around and you want to say that he can, be put into a casket by Yokozuna and a bunch of other people, and then float up into the fucking Titantron and come back to life a couple months later, all right, I'll buy into it. And I'll be like, "Oh, cool, Undertaker's back. He came back from the dead, and Leslie Nielsen found him," and whatever the case may be. But you mean to tell me that Roman Reigns does a spear to Braun Strowman, and he goes for a pinfall, and it's a kick out, and then they spend the next 8 minutes just laying down in the ring?
Well, because it turned into the same scenario that you get in Fatal 4-Ways and Money in the Banks, where it's a multi-man, so for some reason we're all just laid out for forever.
And on top of that, we've got this whole brawl between the other two members of the Shield and the other two Dogs of War, I guess is what they're calling them. Do you guys remember what happened with McIntyre and Ambrose?
I think they're still on top of the cell at the moment.
They got laid out on top of the cell.
That's it? Like, that, I know that obviously Rollins and Ziggler did their little spot, like I could fucking do it. They did the spot where they fall off the side of the cage and they land onto the commentary table, and that takes them out. Okay, fine. But then I was sitting there going, all right, well, where's the Ambrose and McIntyre spot?
They were laid out after beating the shit out of each other with the kendo stick on top of the cage.
That's underwhelming.
No,
and
what's underwhelming is, why the fuck was Foley there?
Well, that was the other thing I was going to get to. And then we go to, wow, okay, Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar are coming out, and Paul Heyman sprays mace in Mick Foley's face. So that's like, oh, that's what he was here for, to get sprayed by Paul Heyman so that Brock Lesnar could do the same thing he would be doing even if Mick Foley was there.
I think Foley, and you guys feel free to chime in, would have been so much more effective in the Randy Orton Jeff Hardy. If you were going to have Foley as a guest referee to say, hey, after Hell in a Cell, they're going to do the 20 years thing, I think he'd have been way more effective in that match, because he could have tried to talk Jeff out of doing the things he was doing.
Yeah, he could have been the referee that said, no, I don't want to count the pin, because that's what the referee did. He was like, no, and referee saying, Randy Orton is saying, do your job, count the pin, 1, 2, 3, and then he calls for the assistants. That could have been Mick Foley. Yeah, I agree.
But again, it's Raw, so Raw gets all the perks.
Well, it's not just Raw, it's Roman. So Roman gets the bells and whistles.
And at this point, it's not just Roman, it's also Lesnar.
Oh, yeah.
I will give credit where it's due. I expected there to be more of a positive reaction to Strowman and more of a negative to Roman Reigns. And I'll admit,
it's quite mixed,
I was wrong. This has helped Roman Reigns. It's not getting him over enough to where he's going to be, cheered if he beats, everybody for the next 7 months and retains at WrestleMania. And I still think it's a bad idea for Braun Strowman in the long run, but I will admit, I thought I was going to be stronger in the one way and the other way, and they mitigated that disaster a little bit.
I really liked this crowd. It wasn't obnoxious, and at this point, it was a little dead. But at this point, I'll take a little dead and not obnoxious any day, because it felt the closest thing I've seen this year to a normal crowd.
Talk about the actual match. This was boring.
This was damn boring.
These two have put on some fantastic matches against each other in the past. And so you put them inside Hell in a Cell, and it actually just restricts them completely. Like, Reigns was back to his Lesnar mode, which is, I only know how to Superman punch people and spear them, and that's about it, really. And Reigns has actually got quite a diverse moveset, but he's been, I'm worried that they're doing the same thing that they did with Brock Lesnar. It's like, hey, the Superman punch thing's pretty cool. Why don't you just do that all the time and then hit them with a spear and then win? You don't have to do anything else. But maybe that's just for his matches against Strowman and Lesnar and stuff like that, and everyone else he faces, he can actually have a good match.
Yeah, I think he needs to start working programs with, Rollins-sized guys where he can do things like, the crucifix powerbomb and the schoolboy powerbomb and things like that.
And Strowman was plodding around,
P5
and it just wasn't interesting until, the other guys came out. I mean, frankly, the other 4 guys carried the most exciting elements of this match until Lesnar showed up. So those 4 were involved in, arguably one of the best matches of the night in the tag team match, and then came out and practically were the most entertaining aspect of the Hell in a Cell match as well. And
that's the real Workhorse Open Challenge.
Yeah, And I assume that Braun and Roman probably got the biggest paychecks out of the night. So, other than Lesnar, obviously, but But it's like, yeah, it was a dull match. Got a bit more exciting when 4 other people turned up. And then Lesnar, which probably would have been a surprise to a lot of people that weren't following like the reports that Lesnar had been seen backstage and things along those lines. He came in and he actually looked pretty motivated.
And you know what? Say what you want about, fans having short attention spans, but people were so happy. They were chanting Suplex City. They were all for Brock, and they were really happy to see him.
Yeah, maybe the situation is that they've managed to actually effectively turn Braun Strowman heel, and Roman Reigns is still going to get the mixed reaction, and that's like de facto turn Brock babyface after all this time.
So, Callum, I know we had said we were on the same page. Do you see a triple threat at Super Showdown?
Yeah. Triple threat for the Universal Championship. And
but
they
already announced that other match, though.
They'll turn the 6-man tag into a tag team championship match.
I find it funny that you're forgetting that they could just, oh no, card subject
to change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's necessarily my, just kind of like, well, I guess naivete of just being like, you announced this, why you can't backtrack like that kind of, there's no backsies like that kind of thing.
But that all the time.
I don't know if it's that, if it's just like me being naive, or if it's me just being like, well, god damn it, don't fucking do that. Like, you know what I mean? Well, at that point, like, you didn't need to have that announced already for the Super Showdown, and if you wanted to go in a different direction, just leave it up in the air and then don't announce anything until you got something to announce. Like, I'm actually working under the assumption, and this is, I hope I'm dead wrong, that they're going to just do a triple threat at Survivor Series, and that we're not getting champion versus champion anymore.
Well, I'm going into an even more like potentially devastating situation, is that this is building towards Lesnar winning the Rumble, and then we're getting Lesnar Reigns at WrestleMania again.
Oh, fuck that. Oh, my God. I swear, if they start doing that, and I buy my ticket for WrestleMania, I might return my ticket for WrestleMania.
Well, it's just a sense of Lesnar's clearly now still around, and Lesnar's fighting for the UFC championship in, like, is it early January, December, something like that? Can't remember which actual month it's in. But
I think it's September.
Yeah, so I think we're either getting Lesnar Reigns at the Royal Rumble, or we're dragging that out to WrestleMania again. They're clearly having another one-on-one match. Yeah, and we will have the triple threat match, but it's clear that Lesnar and Roman Reigns are going to have one more one-on-one match. At least one more, anyway. I mean, it's pretty inevitable, because that's the story. Strowman's a distraction at this point.
I fucking hate that. Like, I really just...
They wouldn't have kept Lesnar around if it was just for this triple threat match. There has to be a one-on-one.
Either way, I don't want Survivor Series to be this triple threat match, and I don't want to see Samoa Joe versus Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series, or any of the 4 option things there. I don't want to see that at Survivor Series, and I don't want to see the Charlotte and Rousey match happen there. I don't want to see... God damn it.
Well, I think the realistic scenario is that we're going to get this triple threat match either at Super Showdown or Survivor Series. Then we're going to have Reigns against Brock at Royal Rumble, and then Lesnar's last match for WWE, hopefully, will be him against Strowman at WrestleMania.
Oh, they could do your loser leaves town thing.
Yeah, they could do something like that, or just have Strowman win clean, and then move on, and just Lesnar could just part ways amicably, and then we can have Roman facing, I don't know, someone else at WrestleMania, like one of the Shield guys that turns on him or something along those lines.
I'm just not interested anymore. If they keep doing anything with Reigns and Strowman and Brock, I apologize in the future for how completely unenthusiastic I'm going to be about it, everybody.
I actually, until Callum was talking, I was just under the thought that, just like Shawn and Taker and Triple H, they'll bring Brock in for Super Showdown because they're really into making these things as crazy epic as possible. And then, Lesnar will go his separate ways for the foreseeable future. But now I'm thinking we definitely got to get a triple threat. And if for whatever reason they really are like Tony and they're like, we announced this match and we can't not do a 6-man tag, and then they want to do champion versus champion at Survivor Series, you do the thing that they did with The Rock and in the middle of fall announce, and Brock Lesnar will face the Universal Champion at the Royal Rumble. And it's like, I don't really want to see that. I'd rather him just be a special attraction at the Super Showdown. And, if you're going to use him in the future, find a better spot for him. But never say never. Who the hell knows?
I'm just not into it. I think that this was the end of... well, let's put it this way. If you wanted to do the best possible job of telling me to not be interested in what they're doing going forward, the way that they ended this pay-per-view exactly accomplished that. All they did was backtrack to redo what I thought we were over with. And this Strowman heel turn is a negative. And you ended an event with a no contest. The Money in the Bank is another dud. Reigns is, admittedly, he's getting less booze, but I don't think it's going to last in the long run. I think Strowman is going to be negatively affected by this. I don't give a shit about Brock. I haven't for over a year. And now all you told me is, hey, remember those things that we did like 18 times? And we said that it was fucking over, essentially? Hey, we fucking lied. And it's like, haha, then fuck you. Because I'm not happy about that. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah,
I'm a lot
giant middle
happier.
finger as far as I'm concerned.
There's too much like window to be negative about the prospects because, quite frankly, there's nothing the WWE have given us recently to suggest that they're not going to do those sort of things. But if I go into next shows or whatever and assume that's going to be the case, then I might as well just not be watching. So I'll try and be slightly positive that they might do something a little bit different.
I mean, here's the reality. The WWE, if they don't pick up the pace soon, the wrestling business is picking up steam. Somebody will catch them. I mean, they're never to the extent that they were caught in the 90s because they built such an empire, but somebody will catch them enough to know that, like, people will start flipping eventually. You know what I mean? They have to do something.
They can't solve all their problems by just throwing money at the highest rated indie talents and assuming that everything's going to fix itself.
Exactly.
Well, it doesn't matter if they do all that, and then all they do is use the same couple people in the same booking mentality as they did in the past. So it doesn't matter if you have, like, you had Kevin Owens. You didn't do anything with him. Admittedly, I think Finn Balor is kind of blah. You didn't use Finn Balor, you know?
Finn Balor got paid, not Finn Balor, Brock Lesnar probably got $1 million here.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. Because I don't even know, because most people thought his contract was over after SummerSlam, but he's clearly got another contract. Or the contract is still ongoing.
Or he just got paid really nicely for this appearance.
Potentially. We'll have to see what happens, because the triple threat is obviously going to happen at some point, so we'll have to see. If Lesnar takes the pin, then maybe it was just a one-off thing, but if Strowman takes the pin, then there's definitely going to have to be a match at some point.
Boo. That's all I have to say. I think that by the end of this is kind of in a similar situation to what I had thought. Doesn't even matter what some of the positives were. At the end of the night, I was left with a sour taste in my mouth. And I look back on Hell in a Cell, and I'm not going to think, well, there was that fun spot with Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy. And, well, the Becky Lynch thing was really good. I'm going to go, well, a lot of matches had fucked up finishes. And they had the most fucked up finish of all at the very end of the night. And now I'm just basically told they're going to continue doing things I don't like that they're doing. And that's just one more event of me going, God damn it. You know? So, thumbs down for the pay-per-view as far as I'm concerned. What's your overall perspective? If you have to go yay, nay, what do you guys say? That rhymed.
I'll say. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Cal.
I'll go. And overall, would say yay, like good. I'd say it was a good show, marred by a really bad mixed tag and a shitty main event.
And I would say yay, just because I went into this thinking I was absolutely gonna hate it, and I didn't. I'm not gonna lie. I genuinely will not forget that screwdriver spot. And I thought the Brock thing, I thought it was fun. I don't think it's actually gonna lead to WrestleMania or anything major, and I'm thinking it's just a one-off. So for right now, I'm thinking I thought it was fun. You know, Brock kicked the door down, reminded everybody that he's a badass, and it worked for me. I'll say all the Gaga worked for me, except for Foley. They could have kept Foley out of this.
I'm happy that you guys enjoyed it more. Remember, everybody, I want to enjoy this more. And when something happens like Becky and Charlotte, it's like, all right, awesome, cool. So, hey, give me more of what I like. I'll like it. Give me more of what I hate. And continue to give me more of what I hate. And then continue to give me more of it afterward. And keep shoving it down my throat. And I'm going to puke it up. That's how it works. So I want to know what you guys listening have to say about this. Make sure you drop your comments below and tell me what you think. I know Chanel, at the very least, really, really liked this. Please explain to me how you're feeling after this, because if I can't take any positive out of it, maybe I can at least live vicariously through the people that did like it and try to go like, all right, well, that's cool that, you know, differing opinions. In any fashion, comments below on YouTube, comments on the Facebook or whatever else you want to drop your comments on. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Make sure that you are also subscribing to the YouTube channel and ringing the bell for notifications, because next week is going to be the mailbag, most likely. And if that means you haven't already sent in your mailbag questions, go ahead and send them in as soon as you can, so that way we can plan out when we're going to do that, whether it's Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not too sure yet, but send them in as soon as you can, because we need a little bit of time to kind of like get things situated. Unless, by some chance, some other kind of main event pops up, and then it'll be the week afterward. But send them in anyway, just to be sure. And keep checking all the other stuff that's happening on Smark Out Moment and all the other outside material, too. If you want to show your support for Smark Out Moment in a monetary kind of way, what you could do is go to the Patreon for that. And you can also buy a t-shirt or some other kind of merchandise on TeePublic or on Redbubble. And do the same stuff when it comes to fanboysanonymous.com. You know, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit up the Patreon, TeePublic stuff, whatever the case may be like that. That's my plugs. Gonna go around the table here, the metaphorical table, and pitch this to everybody else here. Callum, anything you want to toss out?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14, and for the short-term future, at the very least, I'll be doing the Battle of the Brands weekly articles. So check out those and all the other weekly stuff as well.
And for me, I am at Dude Felice on Twitter and Instagram. WrestleZone.com for your daily wrestling news. I do the news shift Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. And sometimes I live stream on their Facebook. And if you want to support me directly, you can buy a t-shirt at timekillerapparel.com. All that support is greatly appreciated. And yeah, stay tuned for the Triple Threat, which is my weekly article that I head and find two people to talk about a topic with me.
To threaten others. That's what a triple threat is, right?
Hey,
Alrighty, everybody. That is it for the pay-per-view-point of Hell in a Cell 2018. Thanks for listening, as always, and for showing all of the support that you have one way or the other. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. And we will see you next time during the hot tags. Adios, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.